Okay, I know what you're thinking. This film is sponsored by Rashaway. Have you gone on vacation and come home with a little friend? Then why not use Rashaway and start to defend? Okay, I'm back. Obviously that was a fake ad. I'm in no danger of being sponsored anytime soon. I've got a few things here, and you're probably wondering before I get started and before I keep bumping this table, where the heck have you been? And by the way, I'm not gonna swear in this video like I have been in the past couple, and someone I knew would do this. I knew someone would reach out and say, why all of a sudden are you swearing in your films? I am constantly doing tests for no other reason other than to satisfy my own curiosity. What happens when I do swear? And then in the YouTube protocol, when I check that box that says not suitable for children, and also, are you swearing in these films? Yes. What impact does that have? I honestly have no idea. I think my battery's gonna die, by the way. So I have been, where have I been? I've been working. I flew to another city in another state, and I talked for a week for Blurb. I taught 2 classes. I taught a zine class, and I taught a class on creating picture packages, which I think went well. And I also did a public lecture, so it was available to people at the festival and the attendees, but also the general public, which is always both exhilarating and terrifying when you engage with the general public. And then I also did something else. Oh, I reviewed portfolios, and that was good too. And I even got recognized on the street a couple of times from this channel, which is kind of terrifying to me. It really is. It always ends up being good. I've not had anyone come up and like take a swing at me or, you know, say you suck. It's always positive, but it still is shocking. So like when my bud Loco was across the street and I heard someone saying something and I wasn't sure what they were saying or what they were talking about, and I just looked behind me because I thought, well, whoever that guy's talking to, obviously the person is behind me. And I turned around and there was no one there. And turns out he was talking to me. And so thanks, Ryan, for saying hello. That was very nice. And also, anytime that happens, it's complete shock value for me. But where else have I been? I have been under the weather, as you can hear in my voice and my head. So I've actually been under the weather, really kind of for the first time since my Lyme disease tapered off a year or so ago, maybe even a little bit longer. I was sick with Lyme for over 5 years, so it was an eternity. And I'm not sure I could have anything else in my life. I've had meningitis, I've had all kinds of stuff. Nothing compares to Lyme. Lyme is the home run of diseases because it just crushes you. So I feel pretty good now. And I haven't gotten really sick, but I've just been under the weather for a while. And also just contemplating my entire existence, not just online, but in physical form. Like, what the hell am I doing? And you know what? I forgot my printout of what I was going to talk about. So I'll be back in a second. And also I got some new stuff. Okay, you would think by now I might be prepared, but that's clearly not the case. I just banged out a 1,500 word blog post for Blurb about Lightroom, complete with images. And if that doesn't make you laugh, I'm not sure what will. Because me writing about Lightroom in general is terrifying and kind of crazy. But you know what? I do what I'm told. I've got a new Saramonic VMic 5 Pro microphone because I never had a microphone that went in the hot shoe with the Fuji, and I always had to mic up, and frankly, I don't really like having to mic up all the time. This is way easier, and by the way, I am gonna torment everyone with just me on camera for no reason. I'm going vlog style here soon, and it's gonna be gross and obnoxious, and I really needed a mic for that. And so far, this works amazingly well. It looks like a Scud missile on top of the camera. It's bigger than the camera, I'll be honest, but I'm not sure there's any workaround to that. I could have gotten some smaller, chintzy, you know, piece of crap mic, but no. I also, what else did I get? Oh, I'm using a Viltrox 13mm 1.4 lens, which is literally, I took it out of the box the second before I started this, did no testing, didn't test the mic either. So if this doesn't work, I'm gonna be ticked off, and it's entirely my fault. I've also got this Outdoor Vitals jacket. No reason why I'm telling you all this new stuff. Got it on sale. Always, I'm pretty set with clothing, but a friend of mine uses this company and really likes them, and this was on sale. Synthetic, less than $100, and it's awesome. It's incredibly lightweight, and and I've had it in the rain and the snow and everything else. You'll see, oh look, I'll trigger, watch this, snow. Me in the snow, there we go. Okay, so proof, evidence, I'm not sponsored by anyone. I paid for the mic, I paid for the jacket, and my new Nikon Trailblazer tiny binocular set. Look, it fits in my hand. So, as you know, birding has become a major problem in my life. And so it's everywhere. You can't get away from birding, which is the great thing about it. You can just do it anywhere. I love it. I'm horrible at it. I misidentify all the time. I saw my 100th bird species yesterday, a Eurasian collared dove. I thought it was a mourning dove. And for some reason, it wasn't scared of me. Maybe because it knew I was near death. And so I walked up to it, and I just walked right up to it. And I looked at it, and I used to hunt mourning doves all the time. And so I was like, I don't remember shooting one of those. And then I looked it up on my trusty eBird, and it was a Eurasian collared dove, bird number 100. But the only binoculars I have are like 20-plus-year-old Canon image stabilizer. They're right over there, by the way. Great binoculars. Had them forever. And they're fantastic, and the stabilization is great. The problem is they're pretty heavy, and when you have them around your neck, you definitely feel it. And then when I'm traveling, they're too big and bulky to take with me on the road. So last year, for example, in Albania, I used a pair of binoculars that were quote-unquote field binoculars. My father died 18 years ago, and when he died, I found these in the center console of his truck, and they had been baking in the Texas sun for probably a decade. He'd never used them, and they were kind of like melted, and when I took them to Albania last year, it actually kind of made it harder to see birds than it did make it easier. And I was like, maybe I should upgrade. So I was listening to the American Bird Association podcast, which I do when I'm doing yoga. Don't judge me. And they were interviewing an actor, a guy I've never heard of. I've never seen anything he's in, but apparently he's kind of a big deal, and he's actually a pretty avid birder. So he's talking about birding in, I think, LA, which is just painful to even think about. But he says, blah, 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 blah. I grabbed my trusty Nikon Trailblazer. And so, I'm a Fuji guy. I'm using the XH2S at the moment. Got all the Fuji glass. Last summer, thanks to a friend, I got to use all the Fuji binoculars, almost all of them in their entire lineup. They're all great. The problem I had is that I have points at REI, and I've got like a zillion points. I have so many points at REI that when the checkout person sees how many points I have, they go, oh my God, look how many points you have. And so Nikon REI had the little Nikon Trailblazers. They fit in the palm of my hand. I don't even remember that I have them on. They're so light when they're around my neck, and they're pretty good. They're pretty darn good. There's a little flare issue from time to time with directional light from the side, but overall, and that's all the new stuff that I have, I think, except for my illness. That's new, and I've been I hate being under the weather because I can't run, I can't ride, I can't do really anything, and it sucks, which is technically not a bad word. So I'm not going to check that box. I have a great Q&A this week. I honestly think this is one of the best ones in a long time. But I had a dream, and we got to start with this dream. I had a dream that I was on a global birding expedition of some sort. Now, this probably comes because I'm reading a book about bird migration right now. And I also read Noah Stryker's book, Birding Without Borders, which was about his single-year attempt at setting the international big year record. It's a really good book. And Noah was sponsored by Leica, I want to say. Binoculars and this weird camera that's like an all-in-one that has this incredible zoom. I think it's actually a Panasonic, but whatever. Has Leica. Doesn't matter. Anyway, my dream was probably influenced by that, reading those books. I had a dream I was on a global birding expedition, and I had my trusty Nikon Trailblazers, and I had a Leica Q3. I know some of you out there are having heart palpitations right now. I don't have a Leica Q3. And in the dream, it was, in my head, I was saying it was a Leica Q3, but it was just this weird shaped thing. It was shaped more like this than it was a camera. So it was just basically a placeholder representation of a Leica Q3. And I had this like one bag, and I was out on the road. Now, two things about this. Number one, that sounds pretty fun, to be on a global birding expedition. I don't see that happening in the near future, or probably ever in my life, but I can dream, right? And in my dream, I am awesome. I mean, I wake up out of that dream, and I'm like, give yourself a pat on the back, because in the dream, you're awesome always. And so the second thing is, you might be thinking, well, if you're going on a global birding expedition, that's probably the worst camera you could take, but that's not true. because I'm buying into the lenses and the equipment necessary to do like actual bird in flight photography, which I find incredibly difficult. I will probably never be great at it. There are so many people that are great. There's a woman named Laura Keene who did a big year in 2015 or 16. Get this. This woman did a big year, which is how many species you can spot in North America or inside the American Birding Association thing, whether it's Hawaii, Canada, I don't know where it is exactly. Anyway, she saw like 800 some birds. I think she photographed 802 of them. So I'm never gonna be her, right? But it's fun and it's challenging and I'm just trying to learn. So I'm buying into the long lens stuff. But if I was to go on a blurble, that's blurb and birding combined. If I went on a blurble world tour and I only had a Leica Q3, I would still make a really good photo essay because it wouldn't be about the birds, it would be about the atmosphere around birding. It would be the people, the locations, the transfer, the travel. Personally, I think I could make a badass photo essay with a camera like that, and I would just binocular the birds and enjoy looking at them and not worry about making photographs of them. That was my dream. It has nothing to do with this Q&A, which is really turning into not much of a Q&A. It's going to be me talking because until my voice goes away. Again, I think this is one of the best Q&As, me rambling, in a long time because I really like these questions. Number one is, do you use an iPad? Good grief, people. The timing on this is just eerie. If I wasn't in 7 layers, I would have chills. But, not only do I use an iPad, the only piece of Apple equipment I've had in 25 years that I actually like is my iPad Pro, which is, by the way, about to turn 6. And in my experience in my lifetime with Apple equipment, with any technology, with any digital anything, electronic anything, you know how bad my track record is. I have a horrible track record. This thing has worked perfectly, and I use it every single day. I love this thing. I use it every morning when I'm reading because I use it to take notes. I use it for email, I use it for research, and I use it and my wife uses it all the time for any kind of streaming. So we have all the streaming services attached to it. I can plug it into my external monitor. I can plug it into my TV. So where I have whatever's on the iPad projected gigantic in our bedroom where all the action happens, people. Let's face it. But that's a whole nother story. So I love the iPad Pro. And here's the thing. Because I'm delusional and I have the time because I've been ill, I have been thinking about this a lot, and someone asked this question. I actually have this weird, misguided, and delusional idea that I could run my entire future empire, which we're going to get to in a minute. I could run my entire future empire off of an iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard and a little dock, a docking station that would allow for like HDMI and SD and micro SD, and then I need like whatever that new compact flash card thing is, that one that's in the XH2 that I can never remember the name of. It's the big one now. I would need an adapter for that. LumaFusion for doing my video, and Affinity Suite for photo design and publishing. And I literally think I might try to do this just for fun. The computers I have a Blurb Mac Pro that I got from Blurb, it's not mine. And I have an ancient, probably 12-year-old Mac trash can, also from Blurb. I have not used that in months and months and months. Because as soon as I got the MacBook Pro, the M1, it is so much faster than the trash can Mac that I just sort of solidified everything. And as you know, I haven't really been making anything other than like hacking up lung biscuits, which is also really fun and entertaining. But I really thought about this. There's like it's a weird, perverted challenge because I'm so bad at all of this that I think to myself, first of all, I love the iPad. The touch screen is such a wonderful thing, and Apple is threatening to do this, but Jesus, man, you're 10 years too late. I had a PC sort of laptop tablet 10 years ago that had a pen, and it was a touchscreen, and it had a keyboard, and it was Windows. And Windows, I do not like. Me no likey so much. No me gusta. And I was like, I gave it to a friend. I was like, I don't want this but the interface, the physical interface with this laptop slash thing, whatever it was. Oh, by the way, it had ports. It had a pen, it had a touchscreen, and it was a computer. And within 5 minutes of using it, I was like, this is better than any piece of Apple hardware I've ever had, except for that operating system. And so the iPad to me is the closest thing, and Apple just keeps going back and forth with like, do you want everybody on iPads or do you want everybody on laptops or what? Like, are you going to cannibalize one or the other? I don't know what they're doing. Tim Cook does not respond to my text messages, which is so rude. Anyway, this is something I think I'm contemplating doing. And I know that some of you are going to say it's doable, and some of you are going to say you're an idiot and tell me something I don't already know. Question number 2, Kodak is about to hike film. What are your thoughts on that? You know, I'm torn. It sucks because it's going to keep people from buying and using film, which is going to not help in the longevity of film. At the same time, if you're a brand and you're Kodak and you're watching the prices that people are paying now, and you're probably in those meeting rooms at Rochester with the orange shag carpet and half the people in the room are still torquing on butts, they're killing some darts in the middle of the meeting, they're probably saying, I can't believe anybody's paying these prices. Let's just keep raising them because, you know, we'll take all the money, all the profit, all the revenue we can. And film is one of the biggest margins in that entire company. The margin on a roll of Tri-X is astronomical. It was astronomical 30 years ago. It's now even more so. So I feel bad about it. But remember too, the number of professionals using film is so tiny now. It's not to say that these aren't important people. They are. I was just with Andrea Modica last week. And Andrea Modica, if you don't know who she is, you know, she's still printing in the darkroom all the time. Debbie Fleming Caffrey, who shot that image right over there, she's a black and white film darkroom person. These are high-level fine art photographers who publish books, who are educators. They're important, but their numbers are tiny and they're shrinking. 15 years ago, the brands across the board in the photography industry looked and said the professional industry is mature. It is getting smaller. It is not healthy. And at the same time that the pros industry was dying, the prosumer industry exploded, and it continues to do so because the second that people could get affordable digital cameras in their hands, photography became exciting again. And so the brands looked and said, why are we working with professionals? Professionals are egotistical, they're insecure, they're combative, they're hypocritical, they're accusational. They happen to make the best work, but they're also hard to work with. Prosumers had time, money, and they were driven, and they're 10 times easier to work with. I'm not saying you're perfect. Plenty of you out there, I've had people threaten me across the board from low to high. But there's the numbers are there, and the ease in which these people are ready to work with a brand is often different from what professionals are. And so Kodak, if they're going to hike it, you know, they're going to hike it because prosumers have time and money. And film has developed this bizarre cult following. You know, there's so many people who are posting images and talking about, and every time I see this, it just stops me in my tracks. And the only social thing I'm on really is Twitter. And I have been very, very rarely on Twitter in the past few months. I just have no interest. It's so embarrassing to me watching photographers like spill out their insecurities on there. And also like, do I need to hear photographers talking about the Chinese surveillance balloon? No, you don't know anything about the Chinese surveillance balloon. So stop talking about it, right? Just go to Reuters, figure out what the story is, and move on with your life. You know, I don't need your 2 cents on Twitter. But you're posting like, camera and film, and then you see the image and you're like, yep, it's an old barn. Great. It was on Portra with a Pentax 6.7. Who cares? Do you understand how that trivializes the process of photography to the general public? The people, now if you're just making images to try to show off to other geeks who like Pentax 6.7 and Portra, that's one thing. And again, that's a commendable goal if that's your goal, because there's a ton of people out there who are geeks who want to know about Pentax and Portra. I could care less. I'm looking around the Pentax and Portra to what image did you actually make? Damn it! It's an old barn again, or a bridge, or a mountain at sunrise, or some over-photoshopped Northern Lights thing. I don't care. Again, if I catch you at the airport in Reykjavik with a drone, you're going straight to maximum security prison for the rest of your life. Okay, that was how I feel about Kodak. Number 3, YouTube. MILNOR, you haven't been posting. What's up? Not sure how long you'll be here. Okay. So here's the thing, and this is probably the most important point of this. If any of these could be considered important, this is interesting because I'm about to break things. I'm about to basically maybe run the ship aground and then set it on fire, a la the Bounty, right? You know, and I'm talking the Anthony Hopkins, Mel Gibson Bounty, where they go to Pitcairn Island and they beach that sucker and then set it on fire. Like, we ain't going back. That's how I feel right now. I'm having a real issue here with YouTube. And I took some time while I was sick to look around. And I don't know that much about YouTube superstars. I know some of them, Casey Neistat's of the world. Hard to ignore him. I've said this from day one. The guy deserves all the credit in the world. To me, he's what put YouTube on the map, and he inspired literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of other people to get on YouTube. And the guy just killed it, and he's made millions of dollars doing vlogs and doing what looks like pretty darn fun stuff. So I love that guy. And he spawned a half a dozen other people that I looked up who are also millions of subscribers and very successful. And there's something interesting that's happening. Apparently, in early January, YouTube changed their algorithm again. And they changed it in a way that is, to put it mildly, cruel. It's hard. And some of the biggest users in the world got impacted severely. I mean, people were down 50, 60, 70% of their revenue and their views. And I started noticing this across the board, from political YouTube channels to motorcycling to cycling to photography to filmmaking. A lot of people saying, what the heck happened? They changed it again. It feels like YouTube is becoming more of an inhumane community and channel driven by this infamous algorithm, which is like a white shark. It spends half its life looking for food and the other half of its life eating food. And that's what it feels like. So some of these superstars were like, I need to take a break. Another guy was like, this is the last year I'm going to be on YouTube. A motorcycling guy I love said, look, I can't be who I am. I can't make the films I want. I can't show you what I want because my revenue's down 50%. I got to feed the algorithm. I apologize. And I look at that and I'm like, you're out of your mind, because that is never going to last. What I'm seeing is a level of mental health issues across the board on YouTube, and it drives me crazy. It's the same with Instagram. It's the same with TikTok. We know that these things turn us inside out. They were developed, in the words of the people who built these platforms, not me, not Mr. MILNOR here, in the words of the people who built them, they were designed to exploit human vulnerability, and they do. I will never be a YouTube star. I will never conform to one topic, and I'm never going to pretend I'm somebody I'm not so that you will like me or subscribe to my channel. I will never be that, and hopefully you know that by now. So I feel like burning everything down. I may or may not post here anymore, or I may change it significantly where the only thing I post on YouTube is a trailer to a film, and then that trailer, wait for it, this is going to hurt, and I'm going to lose a lot of you. I understand that. But I'm doing this not for me. I'm doing this as an example for everybody else, as maybe there's another way. I have my Shifter site, shifter.media. I love that site. I've had it in some various form since 2002. I don't care how many people look at it. I don't care how many people read it. I don't even know. I don't check those statistics. I've never have. I don't care. I love it. When I open up Shifter and I look at that page, it feels like me. It looks like me. It reminds me of Fleming and Charlene, or the people that helped me build that site. I love both of them. It reminds me, it's like a good feeling. It's a good hub. I can write as much or as little as I want. It's all me, and it feels great. I want to build that out, and I want to do a free newsletter, and I want to do a paid newsletter. Yes, a paid newsletter. But I want you to pay for it, and when you get it, I want you to say, man, I can't believe I'm getting this for this amount. That's the goal, is for you to not say, oh, I can't believe I have to pay for this. It's to say, I can't believe I only have to pay this to get what I'm getting here. And that's what I have to figure out. I'm not exactly sure. I have a couple of ideas that I want to do with that. The second thing is YouTube. I kind of feel like I'm part of the problem if I keep posting on YouTube. So the idea is to do a subscription service for my films. First of all, the films have to get dramatically better, more frequent, and more diverse. Again, this ain't going to be just a photography channel. It is going to blend everything that I'm involved in my life. And by the way, in the last 24 hours, 5 new trips. multiple overseas trips, multiple domestic trips, multiple events. There's all kinds of stuff that's starting to happen finally after 3 years of COVID. And so all of this is going to be melded and morphed into what this pay service, subscription service would be. And again, the goal is to say, you're going to pay X amount, but you're going to get so much for that, and the number's going to be small. And plus, I would love to take a significant portion of those proceeds and donate it, because I don't see why that's an impossibility. Hypothetical, $5 a month, and you get access to the films, and then whatever, $2 of that goes to a charity of sorts. I have to figure out what that's going to be as well. Again, I'm just spitballing here. Subscription service for the films, free shifter, free newsletter, paid newsletter, and AG23 thrown in there as well, which is always going to be free, but that's a community I'm going to build out as well. Had a great conversation yesterday with Rick, my senior co-editing partner and co-founder of AG23. There's all kinds of stuff behind the scenes that's tying Blurb, our new ambassador program, me, AG, all of these things together for the first time in so long. It has taken so long to connect some of these dots, but it's great. It's fantastic. So that is kind of what I'm thinking. I just feel like I need to try to find another path that's representative of not just me, but like other people. If you're 15 years old and you're starting out on a YouTube channel, I still see people who are relatively new to YouTube that have seen success, but all of them are compromised, and they will either flat out tell you they're compromised, or you can see it in what they're saying. You can hear it. You can watch what they're doing, how they're behaving, and you go, you are behaving to the algorithm. I can't do that. First of all, I'm probably not talented enough to do that. But two, I just can't, man. I can't. I'm not a contrarian. I have a friend who calls me the contrarian. I'm not. I just look at it and say, I can kind of see some issues here, and why would I deny that they're there? So anyway, you're probably going to think I'm crazy. And again, I know when I do this, a ton of you I'll probably never see you again because you're going to say, I'm not paying for anything. And I totally get that. Again, it's to me, I want to see if I can pull this off. Because here's the thing about the creative world. In my experience over the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 13 years with Blurb, let's just narrow it to that. A good even number, 13. The creative industry is in big trouble. Not everyone, but a lot of people. And a lot of people are living a facade. These industries are mature, they're changing. A lot of the power from the individuals has been both gifted and taken away. And some people are willing and ready and anxious to harness the power they have as an individual. And a lot of people aren't. A lot of people are willing to just let the industry tell them what to do and who to be. I'm not one of those people. I look around and I go, man, if I think back to when I got out of photography school and I started my photography career, I didn't have any of these tools, zero. I had a landline telephone, I had no computer, I had no mobile phone, I had no internet, I just had a phone. That was it, and I had the mail. And so now you fast forward, we have this myriad of tools. Like what else could I possibly need? And yet a lot of people are sitting around saying, I don't want to do that. I just want to do what everybody else is doing, or I want to do what my editor's telling me to do, or what the industry's telling me to do. And that's not me. It is not me at all. And so something has to change. This is probably 4. How do you know when you have a good idea or project? Experts tend to agree with each other. This runs both ways. So how do you know when you have a good project? Man, it depends. So knowing that you have a good project, if you have people that you can trust, who have an actual expertise or knowledge in the field that you can show and get a legitimate, honest opinion. For example, if I put an image online, very rarely does someone say, you didn't get it, you missed it, MILNOR, it's not good, why would you post that? Because they're gonna get cannibalized by the other people in that forum who are gonna say, what are you being a jerk for? That's not supportive, blah, blah, blah. Online is a mess. It is a mental basket case showing work online. But I have a group of photographer friends who are really good, who are experienced and knowledgeable and know what good is, and I can put a body of work in front of them, and in 30 seconds to a minute, they are gonna say, you're either there, you're not there, you've got it. That second opinion can be critical. But here's the other thing that happens inside the industry, is that the industry is a business. And there was, for example, I'm never going to use the name, but there was a project that came out in the 90s that was simply subpar. It was, at the very best, it was average as a photo essay. But the photographer who made it is very well connected, is very wealthy, and is part of what I would call the editorial art ecosystem, and was considered an important player. So the work was promoted, it was propped up, it was hyped up, and everybody behind the scenes was like, what is happening here? This work is not good. And yet, book deal, gallery shows, museum shows, TV interviews, it went on and on and on. I personally gave that work 3 chances. I went to the gallery opening, I went to the museum show, I looked at the book, I just kept going back to it saying, it must be me, I must be missing something. It wasn't. It was that the industry needed this to work. All of the people that had basically promoted this work, their names and reputations were on the line. Those people are in cahoots behind the scenes saying, we need to make sure that this has a good reception, because if so-and-so bought into it and so-and-so bought into it and so-and-so bought into it, we need to make the public feel like this is really good, when in actuality, it was average at best. I mean, I have photo students, first-year photo students who could make a better photo essay, but they don't have the connections, and they're not a known commodity in the photography world. This, again, is a business. It is a game, and some people are amazing at playing it. So you can have a story that's not great that sees success, and you can have the best story in the world that doesn't have the right kind of promotional component, and it's never going to see the light of day. My personal response, the last thing I'll say about this is, it's personal. If you're happy with the work, if the work is enjoyable for you to produce, and you go and produce it, and you're having fun, and you look at it and say, you know what, I think I did a pretty good job, what else matters? Like, you know, again, if you put it in front of 10 photographers, you're probably going to get 10 opinions. I saw photographers fist fight over a portfolio once. Horrible fighters. Probably 2 of the worst punchers I've ever seen. Just absolute horrible, no power, no technique, awful. It was like cats flailing at each other in the middle of a darkroom. It's embarrassing. I mean, square up and really, you know, keep those punches short, turn your shoulders, use your hips, and like really, you want to drive your fist, these 2 knuckles, you want to drive them through the point of the chin of the other photographer. Come on, know your stuff. Number 5, I got to go back over this again, because someone said something to me again about looking at an assignment and saying, you know, that you only did that because it fits your political point of view. And I'm like, good grief, people. That's not how journalism works. That's certainly not how photojournalism works. You don't pick and choose. And I think I've told this story before, but I'm going to say it again. I got assigned to photograph John McCain. This was back in like the mid to late 90s. I was new to the newspaper world. I was a daily newspaper assignment photographer, which means you could shoot anything in a 24-hour period. I did a water main break and went straight to a celebrity funeral. That's the kind of day. I spent 4 hours with the mayor of Phoenix, riding around with him, and then went to a double homicide where a guy shot a guy point blank, 6 rounds with a .44 mag. And it looked like a Rorschach test. There was just blood and pieces of body all over the place. So I went from mayor to the multiple homicide. You don't know. You don't get, I didn't say, oh, well, gee, I'm a little delicate. I don't want to go to a double homicide. Or, you know what, I didn't vote for this mayor, so I can't do this. Nobody wins a trophy. This is not like a fabricated kit glove world of today. This was like the actual journalism world. There's no smiley face at the end of the day. So I get assigned to photograph McCain. I could care less who John McCain is. Now, if McCain was running today, compared to the doofuses that are going to be on the Republican ticket now, 2 of the biggest doofuses I've ever seen in my political life in the United States, heck, I'd vote for McCain in a heartbeat. He would be a bastion of logic and sensibility. Plus, I love his military career. I do. That's commendable. I'm not one of those people that says, oh, you got captured, I don't like you. That's a total chicken beep statement right there. So if McCain was going to run today and I decided to vote Republican and I had the option of those three guys, yeah, I'd take McCain. If a magical third party came along, not that America could ever wrap their head around that, not that we're intelligent enough to even know what a third party is, but like hypothetical, if a third party candidate came and they were great, yeah, I'd vote for them, whatever. I get assigned to McCain. And I forget my strobe. I get up to the podium and I'm in place and I'm locked and loaded. I'm like, I am gonna nail this guy at a podium, right? Which is horrible and boring, but you know, the pressure. And I realize I left my strobe in the truck. So I panic and now I'm running. I run out to my truck. Every other journalist is in the building ready. McCain is coming on at any second and I'm in the parking lot digging for my SB-24 in the back of my truck. And I hear this clang, 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 clang. And I look up and John McCain and his wife are coming down the fire escape of the building. Something has triggered him. He is pissed. And he's blowing off the press conference, but nobody inside knows because they're all waiting at the podium. I'm the only one in the parking lot. It's John McCain, his wife, and me. And I turn around and I'm like, I am gonna nail you because if I don't, and here, this is the thing. This is where the modern mind of like there's no such thing as journalism is absolute crazy. The only thing I saw at that moment, the only thing that mattered was the face of my photo editor, who I knew if I blew this, I was going to get yelled at from point blank in my face. You cannot fail. You do not come back without images. You do not miss. You don't blow focus. You don't blow exposure. And I'm shooting 100 speed transparency. I'm set up for inside with television lights in a cave, and now it's bright, you know, Arizona sun, and I'm shooting 100 speed transparency, and in the back of my head, all I hear is the photo editor. If I screw this up, I am gonna get dressed down in a way. Again, he's not gonna say, hey, do you have a safe place? Are you okay? Do you wanna take a minute? No, he's gonna take the back of my head like this, and he's gonna take his knee, and he's gonna go, gee, 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 again and again and again. That's what it is. There is no political dialogue that enters your mind when you're doing this stuff. It is fear. Fear of not completing the assignment. You're welcome. Okay. Non-photography questions. I love these. You should send more of these, by the way. Who's the greatest of all time, LeBron or Jordan? That is impossible for me to answer because, again, I think comparing generations is very tricky. I think if you called basketball experts and fans, I think MJ is going to win across the board. But the thing is, I view the world in which LeBron has done what he's done is a much more invasive, cruel, encompassing world than anything that Jordan had to deal with. And Jordan had to deal with a lot. I mean, he's under a microscope at an unbelievable level. Uh-oh, wife's home. But LeBron had to do this in the modern era under the veil of social and the invasiveness of 24-hour media. So, man, I don't know. They're both incredible. Their athleticism is insane. I can't even imagine. And I'll just leave you with this. Just imagine the travel that they've had to endure, the amount of airline flights and just the bustle of doing that alone. I don't know how anybody does that. So I tip my hat to both of them. Number 7, do you separate the artist from the work? If you're not aligned with the artist, would you still appreciate their work? Yes, but it can be hard at times. There are some artists and photographers out there who are absolutely terrible human beings. Hang on, I gotta pause it because the crazy's coming in. All right, change of plans, people. She took over. And now I'm stuck here, so we're gonna get through these last ones. Do you separate the artist from their work if you're not aligned with the artist? I do at times, but it's also really hard. Because if somebody's an absolutely horrible human being, I don't really wanna support their work either. And so I've run into people a few times in my career where they were famous photographers in particular, and they were just known as difficult, awful, abrasive human beings. And I don't want to support that work. If I don't know them and they're not like terrible human beings, then sure, I can look at the work and say, okay, well, maybe this person is not somebody that I would want to, you know, necessarily hang out with all the time. But at the same time, I can appreciate what they've done. I mean, I think the online world is made up of a ton of those people where I look at them and say, I don't know if you and I would really hang out, but I appreciate the fact that you've built this online empire. And that's a hard thing to do. All right, we're almost done. Last question. I've been working on zines, but I've had big trouble finishing a project before starting something else. Maybe it's too much thought, paralysis by analysis. I have 5 projects at 90%, but I'm starting a new one. That tends to be, my feeling is that you're probably spending too much time online looking at what other people are doing and not putting the screws to your own work and being honest with what you have or don't have. There is no possible way in my mind that you've got 5 projects at 90% that are good projects. Because if they were good, if they were great projects, you would not be moving on. You would be packaging, editing, sequencing, designing, and putting that work into print and saying, this is a complete package. My guess is that the work is average, and so that's not enough to hold your attention. I also think attention span is something that's challenging for a ton of people today. I think limiting your online experience, your internet usage, and your social media usage is very helpful, because training your brain to think in long form will help you navigate something like trying to put together a project like that. So that's my best goal. I think most of us at this point have projects that are in partial stages, and that's because, you know, when's the last time I had a chance to just go work on a project? I don't remember the last time, actually. And oh, by the way, and this is for the next Q&A, one of my projects happens to be in a national park. And those parasitic bureaucrats at the national park system got an appellate court judge to overturn a ruling that now makes it mandatory for anyone in a park that has any monetization to their life to acquire a permit before shooting in a national park. If you have a 12-year-old daughter that has a paid newsletter for her blog, and she donates that money to whatever, you know, the local animal shelter, she is in violation and will be fined by the National Park Service. This is about greed and bureaucracy. This was a ruling that was overturned in the public's favor in 2001 because it was ruled unconstitutional, and yet the Park Service, in their infinite wisdom, got an appellate judge to overturn this. My question to the Park Service is, how many people were hired to cull the internet for violators, and how much money was spent on that hiring process? Are these people who are existing park employees, and what was their job prior, now that their primary job is to cull Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube looking for violators? Are you fining people across the board equally, or are you going after the more popular people because you can fine them larger amounts? I do not trust the Park Service. It is a bureaucratic American government institution, and this to me is one of the most egregious overreaches that I've seen in a long time. If you are a commercial film crew, absolutely. If you're shooting a television commercial, a motion picture, a major documentary, you've got 5, 10, 20, 30 people, hair and makeup, catering, trucks, of course you need a commercial permit. If you're a 12-year-old girl with a blog, you should not be required. And oh, by the way, is there a national permitting process? Of course not. Each park is different. And oh, by the way, if you apply for a permit and they deny you, guess who keeps the money? Yeah, the Park Service. Again, it's embarrassing. I would tear up your national park cards and I would stop donating any money whatsoever to the National Park Service. But that's just me. Hey, look, my bandwagon. I just got off the bandwagon in my soapbox. That's it. No idea when I'll be back. It's going to be a while, but hopefully you'll still be here.